We kid here on MatStats. We're not going to make you wait 10 minutes to see the wonderful faces that are Kevin Hazard, myself, and Glenn Gormley. This is MatStats episode 14, the money ball of wrestling, along with our statistician and man decked out in orange. If you're not watching the video, you can always just assume Glenn Gormley is wearing orange. And we finally figured it out, Kevin Hazard, the grand poobah of wrestling, Kevin Hazard. As I learned, that's what your son Brian likes to call you. Basically, anytime he wants to make you smile and giggle. So we go grand poobah. So Ed McMahon, have a seat. Welcome to grand poobah, and welcome back to MatStats.
I like grand poobah better, yes.
Yes, it also throws how old we are, because all of us get the reference from the Flintstones.
Yes.
I mean, so, Kevin, you were around with Fred. Glenn, you remember them from when they were aired live on TV, and I remember them from reruns. So we're all good here. So today is part 2 of the margin of victory as it breaks into our tournament scoring metric. Now, we went over dual meet scoring and looked at, not necessarily a point scored per earned, but a point scored and a point given up is a margin of victory. That is what's going to determine our dual meet scoring, and then now, as Glenn has brought it into our tournament scoring. Now, this is the second part of it, so if you don't know what we're talking about, hit pause on your podcast player, your video, go back to nwcaonline.com or mattalkonline.com, find part 1, start there, go through it, absorb the knowledge, and brace yourself and prepare for what we have going forward here on part 2. So, Glenn, while we have that glorious introduction talking about how great the Flintstones are and the Grand Poobahs and Tennessee Road Crew Orange here, let's explain a quick once-over of what we did last episode to preface everyone for what we're about to get into here on MatStats.
Okay, certainly. If you go to slide 5, okay, that's it. We have a what I call the Matt Cliff's notes. Okay, and I've put these together for every show, and they're going to be in our library. Okay, so basically what we talked about last month. Okay, number 1, the margin of victory. Every point just means more. Okay, number 2, keep it simple, stupid. We want the fans to be able to understand this. Okay, in margin of victory, teams will get points from both margin of victory and placement. No advancement points. Okay, the advancement points are already baked in, just like our sponsor, Lakewood Bakery, does all the baking. Okay, number 4, in margin of victory, teams get the corresponding points for the margin of victory, 1 through 14. If it's a 0, a tiebreaker, you get 1 point. All techs get 15, pins and defaults get 20, buys get 0. Placement points for the championship round. 30 points are scored in the 3rd round, session 3, 40 points in the 4th round, session 4. All finals placing bouts, 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th, get 10 additional placement points. In the consolation placement points, the blood round, you get 2. The next 2 rounds, you get 20. And then next 2 rounds, you get 20. And then, of course, the last one, you get 10. Okay? Just so you know, the placement points will be 80, 70, 60, 50, all the way down to 10. If you take the first digit of that number and add it to the place, it always equals 9. In other words, first place, 80. 1 plus 8 equals 9. 8th place, you get 10 points. 8 plus 1 equals 9. So it's an easy way to remember it. Okay. The arithmetic mean of margin of victory points per bout is 6.62 per win. Okay? Now, that doesn't count the placement points and stuff. The 3rd, 5th, and 6th place bouts only score, 3rd, 5th, and 7th, only score 1.49 points. We'll get into that a little bit later. Okay. There's a consistent multiplier of about 5.5 times of the margin of victory over the current scoring. Okay. In both the current system and margin of victory, there is a possibility that some random lower place winner will score more than a higher place. This is inherent in a modified double elimination like we have. Okay. The margin of victory system values all points scored. The current system is basically a hybrid of the margin of victory with arbitrary winning models, winning margins, and scoring points. Okay. So I hope that reviews what we've talked about last month. Okay. Now to start again, okay, if we go to slide 2, MatStats just borrowed I Feel Like a Number, the famous song from Bob Seger. I changed the lyrics a little bit
How famous to who? Wait a minute, famous to you guys. That's a deep dive for me. I know a couple Bob Seger songs. That's not a famous song for me these days, there, Glenn.
Okay, but for old
maybe you had it on your jukebox with actual discs at the Greenleaf, but
yes, when we played records, when we spun vinyl. This is a song for really old statisticians. I Feel Like a Number. Okay, so the lyrics are on there. I'm not going to sing it because I can't read or sing too well. So
Glenn was never big of doing karaoke at his bar either.
No, I did not do karaoke. Okay, I just collected the money, and I could count the money. Okay, we went over this last month, and we're going to do this every month. The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect any policies or opinions of the NWCA. Also, MatStats guys don't necessarily always agree with everything the other one says. Okay, MatStats is a subsidiary of the NWCA, but it's a separate entity that voices their own opinions. Okay, there's 3 hosts here, equal host, Gormley, Bryant, and Hazard. Okay, they're all equally responsible for any good outcome, but if there's a bad outcome, Gormley's the responsible one. Okay.
Or we can blame Mike just because.
Okay, we can always blame Mike. Yes.
No, I'm just. Yeah. Anyway, so it's all there on the screen. We don't need to. It's one of those things like, as Glenn says, I'm not going to agree with everything we've got, and there's some realignment things that when we got some feedback on that, they were like, "Hey, I like that," and we're like, "No, I don't like that." So we're going to have that. So we're getting that out of the way just to know that this is not endorsed, but this is just the formation of ideas and using some numbers. Again, Moneyball or wrestling. Ready to roll.
Okay. So, as Jason said earlier, this thing was so important, we had to break it down to 2 shows so it didn't run too long. Okay, that's what slide 4 goes over. Then slide 5 and 6 we already reviewed. Okay, slide 7. We're now, this old statistician is actually finding out what Twitter is and social media. We hired a social media girl who's done a great job for us. I will see her at the tailgate before the Bama game. We're recording this show before the Bama game. And an early prediction here, the Vols will beat Bama on Saturday. Obviously, if they lose, I'll look like a fool when the show comes out. Okay.
So I'm writing this down. So what you don't know, we'll show you how the sausage is made. I'll write down at what point was this? The 8-minute mark. I will have to edit out Glenn's bad prediction. Edit.
Yes.
Glenn.
No, don't edit it out. Leave it on there. No. And I got a shirt.
Or I'll leave Rocky Top.
Wear
win
orange,
or lose.
buy tickets, beat Bama. This is a shirt so old we used to beat Bama in those days. Okay. So anyway, the Twitter polls. Okay, the first poll, should a losing wrestler score team points in a tournament? We had some feedback on Twitter, and people didn't exactly know what I was saying. Like I said a few minutes ago, I don't write well. So once I clarified it, 65% of the people said, no, the losing wrestler should not score team points. That means the losing wrestler of that specific bout. In other words, why we need margin of victory, not just total points. Okay, poll 2, would you feel confident being the scorer of this tournament? Believe it or not, 65% of the people said yes. But we don't need 35% of the people not knowing how it's scored, number one. And number 2, these 26 people that answered were basically big-time wrestling fans that follow everything. The next poll, this is an interesting stat we'll get into. The 32nd seed versus the 33rd seed, the first rat tail, we have 10 of them, 1 in each weight. They score as many team points as the 3rd, 5th, or 7th place bout do. 72% of the people said this is a flaw in the current system. Margin of victory does deal with how to correct that. Okay, because that's a big flaw in my mind. Okay, now we're going to go into a little stats here. Okay, slide 8, as you see here, it shows the place winner. Then it shows the arithmetic means, which is average in layman's terms, for the total team points scored in the margin of victory or the current system. And then you can see the multiplier, which is always about 5.5. Okay? Any
So
questions,
to put
guys?
this again, to use your layman's terms, for example, so for me and Kevin here, basically what you're saying is you're not changing a whole lot of how the difference. It's not like you're just creating a whole system that's gonna imbalance what's going to happen. It's just the points are going to be more in line with the actual matches versus because as we see, if you see on the board, okay, the way you figured together. All right, well, one versus what we do it now, one versus one. You're multiplying it by 5, so you're seeing the number is increased by that. And like you said, there's not a huge variance in this. And if I'm using variance properly, that's the way you got to understand. So you're not changing a whole lot in the spread between first and second necessarily. It's just the numbers can sometimes like 137. No, it's actually the same as, or in this case, 120. No, it's the same as scoring 23. So that's
Correct,
the one thing
Jason.
I know that I constantly have to wrap my head around. Just doing grand poobah math here.
Yeah. And in order to do this, MatStats did have to come up with placement points. Okay. And 80 down to 10 is what worked best. But we wanted to keep it even 80, 70, 60, and stuff that people could remember. Okay. The next slide just shows the total team points before placement. And once again, 5.5 is about the magic number. Okay. Then, of course, the average number of bouts per place. Okay, and I'm sure most of you people realize this, but people that get caught back in the consies wrestle more bouts than the winner of the second place. Okay, the NPW is not place winning wrestler there. They wrestle less because they don't place. Then Slavin shows us the average number of wins per place. Okay, it's interesting. 3, 4, and 7 win more bouts than number 2 does. Okay, once again, because of the modified double elimination that we use. Okay, slide 12 shows you team points per win per round. Okay, and once again, the multiplier there, which almost every round except for the 3, 5th, and 7th place is about 5.5. Guys, go ahead, weigh in on this.
Kevin, fire away.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, and you said it earlier, and in our poll. So right now, you wrestle a rat tail, and you win. You score more points than you do, or as many points as you do for winning the 3rd, 5th, or 7th place. So it's an interesting that there is such an anomaly there.
Yeah, and when you go to the next slide, it ranks the rounds by how many points are scored. Okay. And you can see there highlighted in green in the current system, the 3rd, 5th, 7th place is 9th. And if you control for the inordinate amount of defaults in that, it drops to 11th. Okay. Or 10th, excuse me. So there's the rounds that are scoring the most points. And once again, with all but the one round is the basic multiplier. Okay. Any surprises there, guys? What round score the most?
No.
No, but I think a lot of people will tend to think that, obviously the semis is the big round. I mean, but again, it's that placement round. People sometimes are confused, like, well, how come we got a bunch of 8th placers, we should be scoring points. Well, if you're losing in round 1 and you're getting decision, you having a 10 8th places isn't necessarily going to score you as much as, so a team that went 0-27 in dual meets with 2 finalists will. So it's one of those things that, the nuance of individual scoring in a team sport versus individual scoring in an individual sport. We've got both complexes or concepts to that here.
Yeah, and the placement points are baked into these rounds when you get them. Like, for example, when you win the semis, you automatically have 12 points now, and the margin of victory, you automatically have 70 placement points because you can't come worse than second if you won the semis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next slide shows the inordinate amount of defaults that there are in the placing bouts. Okay, the 3rd, 5th, and 7th bouts, not the finals. Okay, and why is this? Okay, guys, go ahead and weigh in on why you think this is an inordinate amount of defaults here.
The only thing I can figure, and it seems to have gotten more prevalent over the past decade or two, they just, I don't know if they're protecting their wrestlers or it's just, they're not in the team competition anymore. They're dinged up and they just say, you're an All-American. You came here to be an All-American. You're an All-American. And if you win, you get 1 point. So it's very little, change to the team score. And I think the fans have recognized it too because over the years the place is packed for every round, including Conci rounds, until you get to the Saturday morning session. The place is probably 30% filled because they know people are not going to show up to wrestle a lot.
Yeah, and what we're hoping here in MatStats is putting some more meat on the bone for these third, fifth, and seventh place bouts will result in more action, more matches, more excitement. Because the last thing you want is a default. Now, I understand if someone's banged up and they can't wrestle, that's okay. But essentially, it's become like week 17 became Tom Brady played one play and then came out of the game because the Patriots already had everything clinched. So who wants to go to those games when, okay, so that's what slide 16 just goes over, basically what Kevin said there. Slide 17, if you jump on down there, Jason, this shows the 32 versus 33 against the 3, 5, and 7 place, and then the 3, 5, and 7 when you control for defaults. In the current system, it's almost identical, 1.47 versus 1.49 on the rat tail in the championship versus the placement bouts. If you control for defaults, there's less points in 3, 5, and 7. So they're less valuable than 32, 33. Now, if you look at this, look at the multipliers there, guys. The MOV is more than 11 times as important as the current system in the placing bouts. But in 32 versus 33, it's close to the 5.5 magic number. Okay. So it's a big increase for what we're doing there. In the current system, there's only 1% increase from the 32 to the 357. In the margin of victory, it's 147% increase. Okay. So this is why these rounds should mean more. Once again, in margin of victory, every point just means more.
And,
okay?
And the thing is, with the new MOV, you pick up the 10 for the win, plus you could pick up another 20. So if you're anywhere near, some teams are not coming here to win, but it's a big deal if they can come home as a top 10 or a top, 15 team. You pick up 30 points in that round, that can move you considerably. I know we're going to look at the margins, but just think if I'm in 24th place, I pick up 30 points, I move up 5, 6 places.
Yes, Kevin, it's very, very astute point because we want everyone to be competing. We want more action, and if scoring comes as a result of action, great. That's what we want here. Okay, and I call this the Kevin Hazard system here. What Kevin Hazard discovered after I was doing some work on slide 18, Kevin noticed that margin of victories by 8 and 9 points jump 7. 15 and 16 jump a lot of numbers too. They're highlighted in green. Where besides that, everything basically just goes by the number. Okay, except for pins in there. High. So what MatStats believes will happen as a result of this is because there's no such thing as a big jump from 7 to 8 points or 14 to 15 points. Every 1 point is equal. So we will have a lot more action there and get a lot more. Slide 19, you just see it as a bar graph with that might be easier for people to digest, where you see it as a bar graph. The green numbers, the green bars there are the 8, 9, 15, and 16 that jump ahead of other things. Okay. slide 20 pretty much sums this up. Margin of victory, every point just means more. Okay. This would translate into more action and hopefully more scoring. There'll be no more kneeling on the football. Okay. Because right now you're winning by 5 at the end. Why even try anything? Because it's tough to get to 8. Okay. So we're hoping that just to get to 5 to 6 will make a difference. Okay. Because this could be a big difference in the team scoring and individuals. You'll see it in the end when we go over a couple of these cases. But I think this is a good sign for this thing. All right. We've learned that the scoring in the national tournament between 88, 92, and 17 and 15 went down 15%. We're hoping the MOV curbs this. Okay. Now, here is the top 25 teams in 2022 based on their current system place, then their margin of victory, the school name, the MOV and team points, the classic team points, the multiplier, and the differential. Okay. Things that are in green are a big difference. Like, for example, their Iowa State jumped up 5 places if you use the margin of victory. So maybe I got one fan, maybe Kevin Dresser now thinks this should have been retroactive. Okay. Because he would have jumped up 5 places. So also you can see that his multiplier is 6.4 instead of just 5.5. But
also notice that the trophy teams didn't move either. The top 4 stayed the top 4, and that's who's bringing home the hardware.
Correct, Jason. That did not move at all. And you have, if you go to the next slide, you'll see a few more that have more than 3 place jumping. Drexel, Central Michigan, and Army. Okay. And these are either because they had a lot of bonus points in the MOV or they had little. That's why Central Michigan dropped. Okay. So there's very few teams that actually jump more than 3. Now, when you go to the last one, there's none in there, which is a surprise because with so little team points scored, it's usually easy to jump. Okay. Now, to get a little math in here, everyone remembers the correlation runs from +1 to -1. All these correlations between margin of victory and current system are as close to +1 as can be, whether it be points by school, correlation of place by school. So it's not really, just like Jason pointed out, it's not really changing where everyone finishes. It's making the system easier to follow and promoting more action. Okay, go ahead, Kevin. Weigh in on this. You were helping me out a lot in this.
Well, I know we're talking about 22, but if we look at other years, you have that same correlation, but the margin of victory can be, are we going to go into 21 from here?
Yeah, we will go into 21. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
21.
So,
there's
Kevin.
Some interesting things. Interesting.
Yeah,
interesting
it makes
changes.
It makes it. I did not state myself well. Thank you, Kevin. This does bring the possibility of teams jumping other teams. However, in 2022, no matter how you do it, Penn State wins. Okay? So I don't want people to think it's going to, like as Jason pointed out earlier, we're not burning down the house here. Okay?
No, and we're also not trying to inflate something that isn't a fact based on simple. They had the most champs. They're going to win the title. Okay? There's no way you're going to knock a team that won half the weight classes. There's no way they should not win. I mean, a dual meet, you win 5. Well, look at the bonus points. They're still going to win the dual meet most of the time, unless those other 5 got decked. I don't think those other 5 are getting decked. So, the dual meet thing notwithstanding, but in any tournament format, no matter how you score it, 5 champs is going to win yourself a title. So it's not like we're trying to come up with ways. Hey, let's try to falsely inflate the opportunities for teams to. This is not. We're not giving everybody a trophy here. This is just trying to make it more rational for everybody to understand. Granted,
thank you, Jason.
Granted, Glenn, you're throwing a lot of math at it, but things don't change without actual history and stats. People don't just go, "Let's try it," and okay, sure. That's not how things work. So
exactly. Thank you, Jason. I'm the numbers guy, and Jason and Kevin are the logic guys here. Okay, So on slide 25, you see the few teams that were more than 3 places, either up or down. And then slide 26 shows you, this is all to 2022, that 94% of the teams were within 3 places of their current system place if we switch to the MOV. Okay. Okay. Kevin did a lot of work on 2001, which is slide 8. That was the year where Minnesota won the team title with no finalist. Okay. So slide 28. So Kevin, go ahead and talk people through slide 28 there. You did the work on this. You deserve the credit.
But the same thing, if you look, it's like Jason pointed out before, even more so in 2001, the top 7 teams are exactly the same. And you would think, Minnesota, they don't have a champion. They don't have a second place. So in the MOV, they don't get the 80 or the 70. The best they can do is 60 points. But because they had 10 people scoring, did you say 9?
Yeah. No, it's 10 because we got a small screen here. You got to give around 10.
10 people
10.
scoring, they still won.
10.
And it was really an interesting.
I'm trying to get my hands in there too. It's 10.
It's 10 people. I got big hands, so.
Yeah, we got to realize some of the people on the show, meaning all of us, are not really faces for video. So this is the part, if you're listening, we're trying to get all 10 fingers into the screens, and a couple of us with larger heads than others make that a little difficult. But anyway,
but I have a face made for radio.
I wanted to do that in particular because they didn't have any finalists, to see if it made a difference. Because I would have thought if it was, that would be a year where this wouldn't work, but it did work, and it worked better than any of the other years that we tested. Again, the top 7 and the top 10 are all top 10 teams. They rearranged themselves, 1 or 2. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, and Kevin, I'll add on to that. When you think about this, Minnesota, of course, had nobody in the final, so everyone in the consies, placing. So they actually had more opportunity to score. So if there's any year that this would be more chi-square goodness of fit, would be a year like Minnesota's. And we'll learn about that in 2021. Okay, so 2021 is we start the next slide on that. Okay. Everybody on the
where
first
are we going?
page,
We're going 29 or 30 here.
29. Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. 29, Okie State jumps Penn State in this. Okay. Second and third are switched. Other than that, on the top 20 teams, they're all very close to where they were. And Kevin did the work on this, adding these all up, but it was just interesting. Kevin, go ahead and tell us.
There are a couple of really interesting things. I was a little surprised that Okie State bumped up, but Iowa and Penn State, and you think that they had Iowa beat Penn State in 9 out of 10 weight classes, which I thought was very interesting. They only beat Okie State like in 6 out of 10, and that's why that was closer. Okie State came through and scored a lot of bonus points, a lot of techs, a lot of you go through their bouts, and that's why they jumped them. Penn State, as they've done for, they prep for this tournament, they win the bouts they have to win. I think nobody prepares better for the tournament, but in this case, if you look at like 174, Penn State won, Iowa scored more points. More because they did more bonus points coming up to the finals. And then another really interesting thing, McKee at 125 for Minnesota took third. He scored more points than anybody in the tournament, because he won his first round match. He won fairly easily. I think it was a tech. He won by 7, and then he had 3 falls. Coming back, wrestling back. He got 7 matches where you only get
7
5
wins.
7 wins.
Yeah.
Sorry, 8. Yeah, but
Yeah. So, and we'll get into that even more detail, Kevin. And what the next slide shows, 30 and 31, you have some teams in green which are changing. That basically shows us that you can go up or down large, like Appy State and Binghamton just had one guy place each. They placed 8th, and they did the bare minimum to win. And you can see that with the 3.38 and the 4.3 margin multiplier. Okay, so I'm contending that I'm going on what Kevin said there is this could change how people are coached and how they wrestle, which could change the excitement level if coaches understand that the scoring is different. Okay. Now, slide 32 gets you a little bit of math here, guys. Okay. And I'll give you a quick memory refresh on correlation. Correlation runs between +1 and -1. +1 is a perfect correlation. -1 is opposite. 0 is no correlation. Okay. The correlation between change in team placing when you go from current system to margin of victory and the multiplier is plus 0.7. So in other words, what I've been saying, I didn't just say it not knowing it. I ran the correlation here. You will move up and down based on your more points that your more margin of victory that you have. Did I explain that well, guys?
So teams that have wrestlers that score more points in individual matches will score more points in the team standings.
Correct, Jason. In other words, every point just means more. Now obviously it's a margin of victory, not just total points. So I really think this would change and make the sport more exciting and more action.
I think also, I think Glenn there also, emphasize the fact if they went to this, coaches would coach differently because you'd have to coach differently.
Thank you.
And I think not a lot but I think you're really good kids. And you said it earlier, don't win by 5, don't win by 3, win by 7 if you can. Go for that point at the end. You may need it.
Yeah, now a classic example Kevin mentioned earlier. In 2021, what Jason has on the screen right now is Spencer Lee from Iowa won, Courtney from Arizona State was 2nd, and McKee from Minnesota was 3rd. Okay. Lee was 5-0, Courtney 4-1, McKee was 7-1. McKee scored 141 points in the margin of victory, which just happens to be the most that anybody scored in the entire tournament. Second on that list happened to be Spencer Lee at that weight class. Okay. Now, we also have up on the screen the current system team points. Even in the current system, McKee scores more points than Courtney. So if somebody wants to complain about the Gormley margin of victory, you have to understand this can happen in the current system also. Now, the difference is in the margin of victory, McKee would score more than Lee. Now, why is that? McKee had 3 pins. Lee had 1 tech, 3 majors. Courtney only had 1 major. So would that change the wrestling and the coaching? I think it would. Okay, McKee will happen to win the most pins trophy that year. And once again, every point just means more in margin of victory. Go ahead, Jason and Kevin.
Looking at this real quick, I mean, looking at it from I guess the difference in, again, it's that gap that's kind of, you need to bring it in just to think about it for a second because it's really hard. It's like, wow, 140, he scored 10 more points than the champ. Well, again, you got to take into consideration what that multiplier is. But what I find is, again, the difference in getting pinners, The difference in going for the fall, right? Not just every point matters, but pins mean more as well. And our last show, we had one of the most ferocious pinners of all time, Wade Chalice. He was talking about, hey, trying to get more action. People talk about we need to get more people to pin like they did back in the day. Gable ripping people's arm off and such. Like, you want to get more pins? Look, here's the numbers. This more pins means more points. Duh. It's not just one extra point or two extra points. It compounded over this type of situation. Okay, look, I think 141 points with 3 pins is a little bit more indicative of the quality of wrestling. It's like, all right, yeah, there's something about the optics that just actually, you've got it proven here with the numbers, with the multipliers and what they actually do compared to what they are. But something about the optics of seeing a big number with a fall, like a 6 in a dual meet versus a 2 in a tournament. Come on, it's just it seems just that subconscious thing just kicks in. I have nothing to validate it. It seems like it's better. I have nothing to prove that other than optically it checks my box.
Yeah, and a lot of people live their life on optics and stuff like that. I agree with you, Jason. It means more,
All right, Kevin, what do you got?
Well, I was thinking about McKee, and even in the current system, you're watching McKee, and he did it 2 years in a row, right? He loses either first round or second round, and then blows his way back through to the consolation finals. And you start watching him because he starts beating really good people, and he doesn't just win by a point. He's either pinning or majoring and teching, and it makes it more exciting. And you got more people in the matches watching him, even if there's 6 matches going on at a time. They're watching McKee because they know he's going to do something great. And this point system with the MOV even accentuates that.
Yeah. Okay, and then the next slide just shows how many team MOV points per bout per win there are. It's pretty consistent in 01, 21, and 22. And then we have the arithmetic mean from 17 to 22. And if you want to find out what the current system would be, you divide that by 5.5 and you got about the number, from the old multiplier stuff. Okay. Let's do it. The new
Glenn, you've been throwing this out there, and I'm just going to you've bolded it here. Yes. Every point just means more. I love it.
Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to repeat the same thing so people start understanding it. I did that for years.
Great.
Drink beer, drink craft beer, drink craft beer, drink craft beer. So anyway, on our Mat Cliffs here, this is what we call it, just like the old Cliff Notes. Jason already said for me, point number 1, every point means more. Okay. The MOV system doesn't alter this team standings in a meaningful way. The best teams are rewarded. MOV is easier to follow and easier to remember. Okay. We learned that 8 and 9-point victories jump 7-point victories, and the same with 15 and 16 jump at 14 and others, because people go for things when they know there's more team points. In both systems, semis and quarters are where the most team points are scored. Okay. There's clearly a flaw in my mind in the current system with the 32nd, 33rd rat tail being worth as much as the 3rd, 5th, and 7th place. Okay. Hopefully MOV cures this and we have less defaults. Okay. Which will be a big help. We learned that 3rd through 8th place winners wrestle more bouts than the finalist, because that's what double elimination is there. Okay. 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 7th win more bouts than second place. Okay. That makes this inherent in a modified double elimination, the possibility of a lower place scoring more points. The classic was 2021, the 125-pound bout we just went over. Okay. The magic number is 5.5 on how many more points there are. And to go back to Jason, 2-point bonus for a pin versus 6 in a dual meet just means more in people's minds. And then there you have the arithmetic mean for team points. MOV is 12.26 and classic system is 2.21, which is once again that 5.5. Guys, go ahead and tell me what you think about all this.
I'm trying to grasp the explanation, because let's go back to our problem. We've got a solution. We have to go back and remind people of the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you sit in the stands and score a tournament? So you've got a nice little sheet and you've got your 10 guys and let's score it. So all right, well, Lee won by fall. Let's write 20. We got 20 points. All right, DeSanto, he won by 10. Well, he got 15. All right, that's simple enough. All right, well, let's see. How many did Mirren win? He won by 3. He gets 3. So they can track it versus, okay, now you don't start adding the placement points until you get, so in your little sheet you have just a little +4. I'm thinking of like a mini golf card, for example, where you keep your score sheet where it's got, okay, here in this round where you're at, round 1, round 2, round 3, or you can sit there and you can do it and simply write it down or on your phone and be like, oh, so when do we add the 40? We can have a big +40 in this session or a +10. So, it could be sitting there if you're watching at home, you have it like this round +10. It's simple enough to just add a simple graphic to a screen if you're watching at home, or, in the program or on your phone, be like, okay, we got it. We know that, we don't know I always ask every single year announcing the tournament. I even have a primer in my preview guide that breaks down this round's +1, this down here's plus half point, All right, well, we win the quarter, you get this many points. Then semis is 9 plus, you get the 9 plus you get your 1 advancement plus you get your bonus. So, you get all those nuances like you always have, and that also varies by size of the tournament. At the conference tournament, if you've got a 6-team tournament, it's scored differently than a 17-team tournament. That's the thing that just it uniforms everything. So it's not just at the big tournaments that I think this makes sense. You can track it. You're gonna know, okay, how we did this. You can actually know your team points. And if you need a little reminder before it takes a second for the rounds of scoring to come in, the last one, it's one thing. It's like, well, the finals are +4, but the 3rd, 5th, and 7th are +1. Logic. All +10. Easy.
Yeah.
Yes. And also when the championship, and just hold on a second, Kevin. In the championship round, session 3, if you win that, you get 30 points. Session 4, if you win that, you get 40 points. So that is easier to remember than the current thing. Go ahead, Kevin.
Aha! I actually glossed over that. My bad. So that's another thing. So,
and then in the Conci, it starts 10 points in the blood round, 20 points the next round, 20 points the next round, then 10, of course, for the final bout.
Yeah. The consolations are always going to be tricky because that's where, you've got like in our current era, it's a half point, and it's 3.5, 3.5, and then 1. It's like, wait. So, it's all that fun stuff. So again, we have too much. We used a lot of math to cure ourselves of too much math, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
we're hoping to.
I like that. I like that line. Go ahead, Kevin.
Kevin, you're off the screen. You drift back on the screen. Move that chair back. There you go.
When we were doing like a couple of them, and we were doing the comparison between current system and MOV. In the current system, I was making mistakes. I've been to the NCAA's, 30 plus times, and I was making mistakes doing it because I said, okay, half point for advancement, and then it was a 2.5. Trying to figure all those points out instead of just writing the number in. It just that if I couldn't do it after going 30 times, nobody can tell me that you could understand it if it's not something you do all the time. It's just, this is so much easier, so much faster and cleaner.
You know what I want? Because this is a question that I always get asked every time as we're approaching. Is it locked up yet? I want some computer program out there to say, here is your max points, and just continue like updating it as you go. Each place, okay, oh, here's your max, and here's your min, and then you get to, that's got to be something. Somebody at the smart guys with the programming can figure that out to where, all right, well, this Matt, I just want, this is maybe a topic for another show. It's like, I want to know when it's locked up. That's another thing with this, is because, right, that's still a question. Is it easier to figure this out with an MOV system versus what we currently have? Maybe something to consider. Because all right, well, they won. I'd like to know that.
I know Gorm's always every year at the NCAA says, okay, with that bout they just locked it up. So, and because he's a mathematician, statistician, he does know how to do that.
But and thing is, people always ask us, why don't you announce that? Well, flagrant misconduct exists. So, those points can be taken away.
And I remember a couple of years ago, it almost happened to one of the teams.
We almost, the shove. We almost had that. What if? Oh man, maybe that's another hypothetical topic, Glenn. What happens if there was ever a disqualification in the finals? How many team championships would have been lost? That's something to maybe blow your mind about. Because there's some years it was a half point or a quarter of a point, and a point determined the champion.
78,
so.
Iowa beat Iowa State by half point, and then you had the Metcalf match, where they dinged him a point. They didn't DQ him, but they dinged him a point, which would have been all the difference. Ohio State would have won that year if they did.
That's just crazy to even think about, And of course, 2 years ago when David Carr wins it, what happens? He has a back with Metcalf. I love how
funny.
he didn't take himself seriously on that. That was so good. Anyway, we're getting off topic. We've got to set things up for our next episode, which, Glenn, we talked a little bit about this offline. I'm going to do a lot of work pouring into this because there's some additional stats I want to throw in, and it's about the return of – I don't have a drum roll. Do I have a drum roll? No, I don't have a drum roll.
The NWCA All-Star match.
There we go. That was the worst sound effect ever. I'm going to delete that from our software here. So, All-Star coming back, Austin, Texas, 11/22/22. So, we're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff about the All-Star. That's going to be less about the numbers and the statistician portion of things. We're going to look at some of the better matchups, some of the history of it in terms of, sometimes it was after the season, and then sometimes it was during the season, and then it's been before the season, and then it's been in the first month of the season. We've had experimental rules been used. We've had actual East-West dual meet scoring. Glenn, we'll let you also drop the news coming up on next episode of what's also going to be used at the All-Star Classic, and give you a little hint. Maybe it's something we've been discussing for the last couple weeks. I don't know, but I'm stoked that the All-Star is back.
I have been pushing for them to use this as an experimental basis in the dual meet scoring. I have not heard back yet from the people at Flow and NWCA, but they're definitely weighing this. I think it would be great for the sport because it's really not like it's Penn State, Iowa that everyone remembers who wins the match. Just divide the teams up somehow and do it. So Jason's right. We are in negotiation with Flow Wrestling and the NWCA to use this system. I will be at the All-Star match and can explain it to anybody there. And
we're talking
like
just
said,
the dual meet portion of it, not the tournament portion.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it because we got a lot of cool history with the All-Star too. A lot of cool history with the All-Star. I've got every result ever from the All-Star, both men and women. So we're looking forward to that. So for the our resident stats man
we had
from
the East-West.
Right. Although we don't do East-West anymore, but it'd be interesting to see if geographically how it would work. Yeah, we'll have to look that up. But again, so for our resident statistician man clad in orange, back in '82, Uncle Rico, and then we got the Grand Poobah of Wrestling, Kevin Hazard. I'm Jason Bryant. You've been listening to MatStats. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.